Hey, hello everyone, Bruno here. Today we are going to see something very interesting, which is how you can add the metrics when you are using models, in example, GPT models in Azure or in OpenAI, or how you can enable metrics so you can later have some numbers around how many tokens did you use, the model did you use, and more. And hey, this is super important. It's super easy to do. And hey, let's start to do it. And before I start, as usual, please subscribe and like and more to the channel. So let me share my screen and let's take a look at what we have here. So I am going to use, you probably remember this, I'm going to use the traffic jam analyzer demo that we created with Emiliano. And in this demo, we have a set of cameras, CCTV cameras, and then we have an application that is basically analyzing each one of the cameras. And we have some values here around, hey, there is traffic here, yes or no, and we use a GPT model to do this. This is an Aspire application. There are several services, and one of the services is doing the AI calls here. Like we can see here that we have a worker service that is calling the AI service that here is calling making a HTTP request to a GPT model. And when we start to see here the log values, we have the address, the port, the URL, but we don't have any information related to what we want to do, how many tokens would we use in example. So how we can do this? So let's stop the project and let's go to see. I used to do this with semantic kernel. This is a very simple way to do this in semantic kernel, where you basically, when you are writing your code and you create a sample application like the one that I have here, you basically enable a switch here in the context to have this enabled because it's an experimental here. And then you add some sources and some traces here, like in the source, you have Microsoft.semantic kernel, and then you have a meter for semantic kernel. Then you enable login and more. I try to do the same with the Azure OpenAI, with the OpenAI library. So I found this document, it's basically the same process. First, you have to enable a switch, an experimental switch, by the way, because it's experimental, we are going to see probably some errors at the beginning. And then in the telemetry, we need to add a new source, OpenAI, and then everything else, and the same with the metrics. So let's do this. Because we are working with Aspire, we are not going to do this in the main project, which is the AI project. We are going to use the service default. So here in the service default, which is part of Aspire, let's zoom this a little more. What we have here is we have a specific configure OpenTelemetry process function that is enabled and using all of the services here. So what we are going to do here is we are going to add these two. So let's add the source here for the telemetry. So we have the source for the telemetry. Oh, here, this is the metrics, not source. This is add metrics. Add metrics, OpenAI, and let's add the same here with the tracing, where instead of doing add method here, we add here the source. So we have these two enabled. And important, we need to enable the context switch to have OpenAI experimental OpenTelemetry. So let's copy this line. And at the beginning of the telemetry, before doing this, let's do LAPP context set switch. So with all of this, we are ready to have these numbers. And as I said, let's give it a try. This is going to take some time to start, so I will probably wait here until start everything. Okay, now we have one service here, but important. As I mentioned before, there were a couple of errors here. If I scroll up, let me filter by worker. We can see here that we have two errors. I don't know what is happening. First, basically, the first two calls throw an error, but I can go to the latest one, and I will start to see here that we have the worker service, calling the chat. This is the new one, which is making the call to the GPT model. And if I go to see the details here, I am going to see that we have an operation name. We have the model of the resource, which is chat here, the model that I am using, which is a GPT-4o. Here, somewhere here, I have also, let's make this a little bigger. We have input token and output tokens to see the analysis of the image. So super simple, literally 2 clicks, 2 lines of code that you can add if you're using Aspire. to enable this. And remember, if you want to take a look at the project, this is the sample project, the Traffic AI Manager. Kudos to Emiliano who created this. And I hope you like it, because having telemetry is super important, and enable this. By the way, when you enable this by default, you are also going to have telemetry in application insights and any other repository where you want to push your OpenTelemetry. So thanks a lot. Thanks for the like, subscribe, and more. See you in the next one.